Welcome to the Produce Industry Podcast, your weekly download on current events, trends, market reports, and community discussions. Join us each week from Tampa, Florida, as we cover all aspects of the produce supply chain industry. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, my boy, the voice of the produce industry, Patrick Kelly.
Hey, produce people, welcome back to the Produce Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kelly, also known as Lil Citrus, coming to you live from Tampa, Florida. That's right, Ag Life Studios, right here at the Produce Industry Network. Everyone, super excited to be back. Listen, it's September 29th. We are just a couple weeks from SEPC. And if you've been listening to the podcast over the last couple of weeks, you've heard all of those interviews from Charlotte. You've heard Ross, the produce boss, and I in Charlotte, and a lot of the education and always, what's out there. So I got to say, the show is great. And I always say, what are you doing after the fact, right? What's happening after the show? What are you doing after the show? Well, we're going to find out from one of the best people in the industry, which I'm not going to tell you yet. But we're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about some of those follow-ups and what we've seen out there. But a couple announcements before we get started, as always. So right now, Juanita is in Madrid. She's at Fruit Attraction. She is attending. She's walking the show. If you're there, you see her, say hello to her. And also, I believe she's walking around with a couple of Roadcaster mics. We have some fun giveaways that we're doing at that show and IFPA, which leads me right into that next conference, which is IFPA, the global show, which is Thursday, the 16th of October through the 18th. Again, most of everybody is going to be coming in between the 12th, 13th, 14th. I'll be the 15th hanging out with local Bounty Fresh Gourmet for their get-together that is on Wednesday night. And we got a fun night wrapped up for that. And then the show is just going to be absolutely crazy. I'm not even going to go past that. For what's after that, besides, or we say business trips, right? We do have November, Water for All, the hike to Pico Duarte. Everyone, we're going to be posting some donation links. Please donate, okay? All the money goes straight to building water infrastructures for the people that do not have access to clean running water in the Dominican Republic. So you're helping out, okay? Don't just donate. Don't just go to the Goodwill and throw those clothes away and not know who it goes to. Donate to Water for All. We know exactly who it goes to. So we will be down there. Year 4 for me, year 2 for my son and my wife. So really excited about that. And then getting into today's message. What a title, right? Goodbye status quo. Hello new reality. Our subject matter expert today, Anne Marie, which everybody knows Anne Marie. And if you don't, then you got to get on the train. Okay. That's not my problem at this point. I say this every time. Like, if you don't know Anne Marie, it's on you. Okay. You're going to learn from her today. But everyone super excited because some of the information that we talked about is in my world. And why is it in my world? Because I published a book called Millennial Boom in 2018 with co-author Hans Finzel. And let me tell you this, okay? I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I knew I love doing the research on the generations. And for the last 30 years, okay, baby boomers have held the majority share of produce dollars, meaning that they are the ones making and driving the produce sales by them purchasing. They've been the powerhouse generation driving sales in supermarkets. Okay. Think about it. Co-ops, farmers, markets across the country. But change is on the horizon. Okay. And in less than 2 years, millennials, okay, will take over the largest generation driving produce purchases. Okay. And now remember, the millennial generation is at 82 million, while the baby boomers is just around 76 and shrinking. So this means goodbye status quo and hello new reality. So let's unpack that and what that's really going to mean. And then let's see if what I say lines up with what Anne Marie's thinking, but we'll have her on right after the break to really dive into a couple topics. But boomers and produce spending. So boomers grew up in a very, very different food culture than we did. Okay. Very loyal shoppers. If they like a store or brand, they'll stick with it. They tend to value consistency, quality, and price, often gravitating to the same items week after week. Now, I will tell you this. My dad is 69. We just had a new Aldi's open. And I said, Dad, let's go to Aldi's. I haven't done a review on this store yet. And he's like, ugh, I hate Aldi's. And I was like, what? He's like, you got to put a quarter to get a cart. And they never have any of the brands that I know. And I'm like, I just want to go see what's in the store. Think about what he said. Okay. So think about what staples are out there, like the iceberg lettuce, bananas, apples, Idaho russet potatoes. These items have been basket drivers for decades. And Anne Marie has said this many times in her presentations. They also help build the rise of warehouse clubs and traditional grocery chains. And let's not forget, boomers will represent an enormous amount of disposable income, which has kept produce sales steady and strong. Okay, but what about millennials? Let's go to my side. It's right. It's my turn, right? Give me the soapbox for a second. Now compare that to millennials. This generation is not only diverse, but also highly adventurous when it comes to food. I've explored so much food in my 30s. Okay. And I'll tell you this, millennials are more likely to try dragon fruit, purple cauliflower, or branded varieties like cotton candy grapes, which I've tried. Okay. I've tried them. We value storytelling. We want to know where our food comes from, how it's grown, right? Whether it's sustainable, is it organic? Okay. Millennials are also spending differently. Convenience is huge. Okay. Gravitate towards salad kits, fresh cuts, smoothie blends. Really on the go shoppers, right? Very fast paced lifestyle. As my buddy G would say, Bali Bali in Korean, right? And it's in a digital sense too that we see them nature this, right? Because we're always online, okay? Between grocery shopping, delivery apps, and food trends that are on TikTok. Anne Marie talks about this every single conference about the trends that people pick up from TikTok. So what does this shift mean? What does it mean for our industry, everyone? Okay? Because it's a massive opportunity. The produce department has to evolve, right? From being that routine, pride-driven to being an experience-driven and a story-driven, I would say, department. And the co-marketing. So think about some of these things. And will millennial shoppers who are already changing seek out a produce consuming budget celebrated by buying new items? Okay, think about that. So today, very important conversation. So we're talking about data, we're talking about trends, we're talking about strategies, okay? And our guest, Anne Marie, founder of 210 Analytics, everyone, and one of the most valued, trusted voices in food retail, I'm telling you right now. And she works in all departments, just so everyone's clear. Fresh produce is not the only one. She knows all the trends from across all of the produce and grocery and meat departments. All right. Well, listen, millennials, boomers, as I've always said, clash of the cultures, a battle to the end, because it's the two generations that will be talked about for generations to come. All right, everyone. So listen. Stick around. We're going to head to a quick break, okay? When we get back, we're going to change it up. We're going to bring Anne Marie right on, talk about some of those trends, talk about what's happening, take another quick break, and then get some key takeaways on what you should be doing for these opportunities. So we will be right back.
120 years ago, in Groningen, the Netherlands, a small produce business began, trading fresh local fruits. By the 1930s, the Vandenberg family moved to Rotterdam, Europe's burgeoning fruit hub. But when the 1940s brought turmoil, they fled to America, rebuilding their legacy in fresh produce. In 1958, Jack Vandenberg became a trailblazer, importing fresh Chilean fruit to the US, opening doors to global flavors. Today, that spirit of growth and innovation continues, with sustainable packaging, carbon footprint tracking, and the finest fruit varieties. We're redefining freshness for the future. Family, fresh, innovation, celebrating a legacy 120 years in the making. This is Jack Vandenberg.
Welcome back to the Produce Industry Podcast. Everyone, it's always great to hear from Dynamite sponsors creating dynamite content for the produce and supply chain industry. Everyone, no, I would say stranger to the show. I wish she was here in person. She's not. Well, listen, I'll just let her tell you about her travel schedule. Hey,
how are you? What
amazing.
An intro. And yes, you are dead on the money. I'm impressed.
Okay. What, that your travel schedule's crazy? I know that. I know I'm dead on the money with that.
And yes, the clash between millennials and boomers, and we got an opportunity. And I loved how you framed that, because so many people go, oh my goodness, there's a lot of change on the horizon. Vegetable industry, be aware. In my book, if there's change, there's opportunity. And that's how I look at this world.
I mean, change is a good thing. And, so when I was writing my book, Millennial Boom, it was funny because it wasn't always called Millennial Boom. It was called Clash of Cultures. And we changed it to Millennial Boom, millennial being small, boom being big with an exclamation point. And we changed it because we were like, we don't want to have like a negative title. But like, it's so true. Like, right? I know I get it in like 2018, but it has been a clash of the cultures since my book has been published, I say since 2018, but also for a long time, Anne-Marie.
It has. I loved your goodbye status quo, and really the last 5 years have been goodbye status quo. So SCPC, to your point, it's Southern Innovations. We always use the research to kind of look ahead and see what's on the horizon. And every single year, the research is very different. And we ask the industry, like, hey, what should we be looking into for what's new? That's the name of the research. Well, this year, the research just kind of presented itself, because all year long, we have been seeing fruit outperforming vegetables. In fact, we've been seeing that for 5 years. But what's new this year is that fruit is growing despite inflation, and vegetable sales have been flat to down. In fact, if you look year to date, the pounds, the units, everything is negative. So that immediately became hey, we need to understand why this is, and we need to understand how we can reverse that and make sure that we keep fruit sales strong, but also bring back vegetables to the plate, to the snack, to the morning breakfast, whatever it might be. And that's really what's new became all about. And to your point, that's what we presented. It's a really fun format. We had hundreds and hundreds of people in the room. I presented some information. They chatted about it at their round tables. And I think we're going to see some huge change coming at us in the next couple of years.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, that's one of the things that I'll tell you is that I can't say like I long for, but what I've been told over my time period, which is like change is a good thing. And I think that, as always, change brings opportunity, change brings challenges, and that's okay. All right. Like, why do you want to do something easy all the time? Easy is easy. Defining us as good businessmen or women or people is, how we handle hard, challenging things, right? Creating opportunities out of these things. So I'm seeing it as, right, as my generation, as being the millennials, I always say we've been the largest generation. People are trying to define the generation between like an Xennial now, millennial. And I always laugh because I'm like, they want to classify their own generation, right? They want to go, oh, well, I'm not this, but I'm this, right? No, I act more like a Gen Xer, but I was born this time period, right? There's 82 million millennials, right? And we knew that change was going to happen. And some of the millennials that I know, right, and probably the same as they're already on their second house purchase, right? Some have investments that have 3-4 houses at this point, but yet sometimes millennials are still looked at as the group that they say, oh, they're still the up and coming group. Well, millennials, I hate to break it to you, they're all adults, okay, and they're thriving adults. They're owners of companies. They're in management, right? They're your nurses. They're your doctors, right, Anne Marie? And I think that because the baby boomers in our industry, stay a little bit longer, and God bless our industry, right? I mean, some of these farmers they change their oil on their tractor, and the next day they die, right? But they love it. They're passionate about it, right? So it's a crazy way of the change our industry has seen.
Yeah. And so absolutely, it was very interesting to dive into the numbers to uncover the why, which then drove the entire research that we did with 1,500 consumers. So the why is what we're seeing is over the last couple of years, as I mentioned, fruit has been outgrowing vegetables. Why is that? Well, we looked at what is the share of spending today? Well, lo and behold, to your point, the boomers was a 2-decade generation. And so in that 2 decades, they have been controlling the produce dollar for a long time, still do today. So their share today is still the highest at like 33%. Gen X, very likely to have children right now. So it's a small generation, but larger household. So they're right up there at about a third. And then millennials, to your point, they're 28 to 45 years old right now. They tend to have children. They're coming into their career and income.
Yeah.
So there's another third. So today, we're looking at about a third, and third. Now you look at growth and you're able to start looking into the future. Well, lo and behold, what is happening is that boomers are now pulling back on their vegetable dollar. So their growth is negative. They are still buying a little bit more fruit. So they're switching a little bit more to fruit. But when you look at that powerful millennial generation, it turns out that they are driving 68% of all new produce dollars. And they are currently already more engaged with fruit, and they're ramping up their fruit growth at double the rate than vegetables. So that's why we're seeing that bifurcation between the success of fruit in today's market and why vegetables are struggling a little bit. In other words, the millennials are not backfilling that gap that boomers are leaving in vegetables. Now, it's not true for every vegetable, but combined. Yeah, that's what we're seeing. And so the whole rest of the What's New study became about, if millennials drive 68% of growth, we have to understand how they are different from boomers in every single way, how they plan, how they shop, where they shop, what kind of things they buy, where they get their inspiration, what do they do with the meals, how important is snacking versus meals. We always think about produce competition as fresh, frozen, and canned. Well, those days are over.
Yeah,
the millennials.
I know that.
We have pouches and shots and all sorts of bars that have 3 mangoes worth of nutrition in them. We have supplements, we have powders. And so, yes, our competition is wider. To your point earlier, I loved your intro. Boomers are routine shoppers. They have their meals, which makes planning and production forecasting easier. But now we're going to have a millennial generation who is like, oh my God, look at this Pinterest or this Facebook or this YouTube or this TikTok.
Yeah.
To the store and buy it. So that makes it a much more whimsical marketplace. And, that's a lot harder to deal with.
And you said it right, which was like last night. So Renee, she was like, I'm going to try this out. And I was like, what? She's like, I'm going to time like my dinner. And she's like, because how like you get these dinner recipes and they're like 30 minutes, and like 30 minutes for like a normal person is like an hour and a half.
Right.
I'm always like, do they factor in that you have to cut everything up and do all this? And Renee's like, no, a professional chef made this recipe. So that chef,
and you're like,
I'm like,
yeah.
I look like I'm a boat going, right? But Renee was like, I'm going to try this recipe. I've been following this girl on Instagram, and it was these like flattened chicken tacos that like it all gets smashed together. You cook it like a tortilla, and then you just get a Caesar salad kit, and it's a chicken Caesar taco. So I was like, all right. So Renee was like, she did it. Boom. She's like, yeah, each one takes 7 minutes. So then you cook 3 to 4 of them at a time. So, but she's like, so here we go. She's like, as we're eating though, she's like, she cooked 4. She cooked by the time we even like put the 3 of them were good, but this next 4 were out. Right. So by the time we were ready to go, it's probably like 21 minutes, 20, total to get 8. Right. But she was just like, that was easy. It was easy. It was quick. Renee's like, we got our produce in as well. Right. Like, so it was little things like that. And then she's like, well, maybe next time we'll cut up some tomatoes. Right. Because now we understand the process of it. But I don't know. I think it's right. Like, I guess it's more the adventure every day. Right.
No, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, if you just look at the difference in boomers versus millennials in terms of where do you decide not just what's for dinner, but also what's for breakfast, what's for lunch, what's for morning snack, afternoon snack.
Yeah, that stuff's
You have a teenager in the house, right? So you serve a snack and then a second snack and a third snack before you eat.
Well, I'm lucky. My snacks are like protein bars for the kids now.
Right.
Like, my son's been really into 13 years old. He's like, I got a bulk, Dad. I'm like,
that's
okay.
I have one like that too.
Yeah, I got a bulk of protein bars. But you're right. That I always say that kind of stuff's easy though for me, right? But the boomers don't do that anymore, right? So I think they're eating the 3 traditional meals a day versus the millennial who I wake up at 5 a.m. and Renee and I at 5 a.m. are going, okay, hey guys, do you want this, or this for breakfast? If not, we decide, right? And then we're making their lunch for the day, right? So but I say that's easy because the way we are, how we pack their lunch, it's very simple, right? An apple, right? Let's cut strawberries, blueberries, right? All the things. And then obviously things that are not perishable because we have to. Right. Trust me, when they're in daycare and when they're in school, like you got to throw goldfish in there. Like I'm not against that. Okay, Anne-Marie. But listen, before we talk more about that, let's cut to a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Zeg Technical Services, we do many things. Managed services for IT needs, including consulting. Another area of expertise for us is cybersecurity, making sure that there's awareness and risk prevention. And then the final piece is the data and software services, where whether it's software automation, data management, even AI, we have things that we can do to help your business. Those are core components that your company relies on. So we have a rich history of being able to manage these IT services so that you don't have to worry about them. You trust us so that we keep your operations going and your business going ultimately. When we talk about what AI can do for you and the time savings, even though you don't think you have something that you can just put AI in, you probably do if you have a business case that could be benefited from automation or efficiencies that are brought in. We can trust AI to do those things, and the beauty of that is you can free up time for your employees to do more meaningful work. So even if you think you may not benefit, I think it's worth a conversation because you will be surprised. We'll walk you through every step of the way, and we're here to help.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about the future. That's right. Goodbye, reality. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone, Anne-Marie, welcome back. Always great to hear from our sponsors, and great to have you today.
Yeah, great to be here. And I like that you had a little Dutch start to your sponsors. That was pretty cool. I
like to say that trying to represent the sponsors in a different way besides just trying making people buy things, right? Or we want to understand and showcase what they do, right? So we got your attention, right?
It sure did.
Perfect. That's all that matters. So before the break, we were talking about the millennials versus the boomers and the change that is happening. Obviously, if people weren't at the show, what can they? Let's talk about that first. First of all, SEPC, the Southeast Produce Council, puts out some good posts. I believe it's every Wednesday, right, Anne-Marie? And in the upcoming weeks, we're going to be there's some posts that are going out and they're going to be focused. We're not going to go through those posts, but I know they're going to be on their LinkedIn. But let's talk about some things that we learned at the session, and what can we look forward to, like not forward to, but what can we see in the business side? What can we be looking for to change, right? Or where can this opportunity be, Anne-Marie?
Yep. First of all, you're right. What's new Wednesday? So every Wednesday there will be a new LinkedIn post with just one little snippet. Of course, hey, I did the study, so there's probably 80 pages worth of data. So we know we need to make that a little bit more digestible. So that's I know myself, you know. So that's an important thing. But yes, I think your intro was dead on. We're going to see a number of changes, and that is convenience, the need for speed. Boomers certainly had busy lives and kids in sports as well, but the big difference was that oftentimes there was only one head of household and another person at home dealing with the cooking, the planning, and everything else. Now what we're seeing is a lot of two people working in the household with all the same responsibilities as far as taking kids to school, to sports, everything else. A lot of people back to work. So it is putting tremendous pressure on the need for speed. We're seeing millennials cook with different devices. We see the air fryer being wildly popular. We see meals that at most should take about 30 minutes, but for during the week, we often see that just average 20 or 25 minutes. So keep that in mind. Does that mean maybe you need to already chop up the broccoli, those kinds of things? We're seeing also a massive influence of children. I would say that's a big difference between millennial parents and boomer parents as well. What we're seeing is even though millennials love to experiment, at the same time, we're seeing that they are very willing to say, I like or don't like this. And that don't like this, often then I call it the recessive gene. If one person in the household doesn't like things, that whole household then becomes a non-purchasing household. And that's something we need to figure out, especially on the veg side, right? How do we overcome that greater willingness to say, yeah, that's not for me? Is it creating different textures? I loved your example of doing something different with a taco and getting your veggies in that way. Texture is huge for younger generations. If you think about what's been growing in fruit and veggie and really around the entire store, it's something that has a crisper bite. If you think about the grapes, the apples that are growing, right? Yeah. So texture is big. So even though people maybe reject, actually Brussels sprouts, isn't that the perfect example, right? People that rejected the being just boiled to smithereens the way my mother made them. But they were crisped up, great. We talked about health and well-being. You know, we owned health and well-being as produce for many, many decades. If you ask a boomer, what is healthful eating? Fruit and vegetables. But when we asked younger consumers, there was actually a new kid on the block. It was still fruit and vegetables, but protein was mentioned by many of them. And that's where the meat department has been winning. And that's where some people are looking beyond that overall health halo. So yes, fruit and veggies still healthy, but what specifically are they doing for my body? So fiber maxing right now is coming on very, very strong. Is it iron? Is it vitamin B, D, C? And those kinds of things. We don't need to get hyper technical about it, but it is great to see vitamin C for immunity. Now, I realize we are only allowed to put certain things on our package, but we have a big opportunity to educate consumers about what this specifically does for you, because supplements, smoothies, bars, shots, they're all eating our lunch among that younger generation because it is easy and on the go, which is really where that convenience trend and health and wellness trend all come together. That sound about right to you, family?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And a lot of times too, you know, it's crazy because like my son will read the label of his protein bar, right? Yeah. And we get a lot of I always say like the kids all natural like protein bars, and it's crazy how much he eats protein bars compared to what we used to. But I mean, you're spot on. And I always say, like, so for the supply chain, if you think about it, like the opportunity, like I'm going to go from like the marketing angle, right? Like on what you can do for this, because if the produce supply chain now knows that millennials are going to be shifting into the lead end user, right, in the next couple of years, then there's going to be things that could be capitalized on in these processes, right? And I think into it of the first thing of like transparency. I think that millennials want to know where their food comes from, and I don't think QR codes are dead. I think that QR codes are very important, and I think playing a QR code on your label and showing the supply chain and showing locally grown, or showing things like, even if it's something that's around all the time but only in season, citrus from California. There's right. Well, I think Fresh from Florida did a study that 82%, and it's probably higher now, will repurchase if they know where it comes from. So when you see Fresh from Florida, they're like, perfect, I know this is local, I'm going to buy more of it, right? So the opportunity to market a transparency is huge, right? And then convenience, right? Convenience packaging, when we're seeing that more and more, right? Anne Marie, grab and go snacks, okay? Yep. Millennials are willing to pay for time saved. I see this last couple of weeks, and you've said it, I've said it, like, just with kids, it's crazy. Like these last couple of weeks, I've just felt like I think I've slept in most of my life in the last couple of weeks. Like, and I mean sleeping into like 6 o'clock. That's my sleep in, right? But still, right? So, and then little things like adding the digital integration, I think is key for millennials. The more you can geo-target, millennials are on their phone while they're shopping. So if all of a sudden they're on their phone and an ad pops up on Instagram to get this type of seasoning for this type of vegetable, those types of things. Mike Chavez said the other day, Emery goes, you know what I want to do? And I'm like, well, he's probably gonna kill me now for saying this, but I was like, it's a great idea. He's like, I want to do a text message thread. And he goes, I go, for what? He goes, like for IFPA or something, that when they arrive, everybody in the industry who's on it gets a text message, welcome to IFPA, from Citrus from California. And he's like, and I just want to do that just because, like, citrus is from, like, you know what I mean? He's like, just to put it instilled in people's minds, like, oh, that's a great idea, right? And think about that. We're missing the boat on that because we think that nobody's going to read that because we don't on a business standpoint, but on a consumer standpoint, they will. So, right, sure. Think about that them being able to go, oh, look, wait, citrus from California, click, I'm in a grocery store. Oh, look, Sprouts has citrus from California, locally grown, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, got it. Boom. That's how it works, right?
For sure. And to your point, right, you're not only finding recipes on your digital sources, whether that is YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, what have you, but it is also what's on sale, because the other big trend that is happening is still the marketplace, and we cannot underestimate that, right? We still see huge pressure on income with prices, not just in produce, but across the entire store, and much else up 40% over 2019. So how do you manage that? Well, there's a lot of focus on what's on sale, a lot of trips to the store. We've never seen produce being purchased this often, but people are buying less because they don't want to waste anything. And of course, that is one of the things we have to overcome as fresh produce. But to your point, apps, I mean, if you look at boomers, they still love their circular, right? The little printed piece, and they put all of them on the table. That's how
it's like a novelty for me when I travel. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to grab a circular just to see it.
I know, right? I do too. But these days, it's not even having 4 apps on your phone. There's whole aggregators of apps that can tell you what's on sale. I can go to ChatGPT and I can tell it, hey, meal plan me for the week. And now, okay, I approve this meal plan. Now tell me where I can find the best prices for this particular meal plan. So yes, technology is making inroads in anything from sales to meal planning, to really also afterwards. I think this whole idea of the younger generation eats with their phone first. Take a picture of what you're making. And if something looks great, or you go, oh look at the blood oranges I just purchased or whatever. I'm like, I haven't had those in forever. and off I go, right? So yes, there's.
Well, listen, I mean, look at me. Like, I'm not the most handyman of people. Like, seriously, like Renee can use a wrench better than me. Okay. Like, seriously. And over the years, because of YouTube, I have gotten so much better. So like you and I think are friends on Facebook. And if you look on Renee's Facebook page, she hasn't posted, but I've been digging trenches around the house. But what it stemmed from was this, and this is where, because we're going to wrap this up. This is my leaving thought is think about it like this. I had an issue. I had to call a plumber because of this issue. And I was like, I'm like one of those guys where I was like, what's up, man? You need water? Like, I was like there. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to bother this guy, but I'm going to watch him on my Ring camera. But I was watching what he was doing, right? And I was like, interesting. I'm going to look this up on YouTube. So then I looked it up on YouTube. I'm like, how to do this, blah, blah. And I start as this guy's outdoor, I'm watching, and I'm watching YouTube video after YouTube video. And I looked at Renee. I was like, I could do this by myself. And she's like, okay, right? And the first one was horrible, right? I did the first, I dug the whole basin. It was like a whole French drain system. I did it down 65 feet. It took me 6 weekends, right? It was horrible. Okay. And then I kept watching. And about a year later, I'm like, I'm going to do the other ones. Went to the store though, and I was like, I need this, because I started watching more videos. So I got the right equipment, right? And I did the next one. It took me 1 hour to do the whole thing. Boom, done. And Renee was like, holy cow, I did the third one. I'm doing these around my whole house. But that's how too we do cooking as well. So normally when there's an issue, we've got this. This is on sale. We're gonna buy pork. We're gonna buy this. We're gonna buy this. Let's experiment. So we look it up online and we'll actually see what people cook on YouTube. We do. If it wasn't for YouTube, I'd have big puddles on the side of my house, right? Or I'd be spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a chef inside my house or having a plumber come over. So, I always say that the key takeaway from me is don't underestimate what people are actually viewing on YouTube. It's not just these weird games and this reoccurring memes and stuff. It's real stuff, right, Anne-Marie? So that's my key takeaway. What about from you before we wrap up?
Last thought for me, there are categories that are looking to grow sales and have an uphill battle because it might not be an item that people want to eat more of. Well, the beauty of produce is that 82% of consumers, so whether they are boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, or Gen Z, 82% of consumers want to eat more fresh fruit and vegetables. So in my mind, that opportunity is ours to seize. We just have to be highly cognizant of our world going to look a little bit more different than it has the last 30 years.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Anne-Marie, thanks for coming on the show. Next time, hopefully in person, I'll get her down here, everyone, to the new studio. She's been to the old studio. She's got to get down to the new studio. Trust me, you'll love it. It's a padded room, so it's very the acoustic in here is amazing. So you'll love it. But Anne-Marie, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
All right, that's a deal. I'll swing by.
You have to. All right, everyone, thank you so much. And we will see you hopefully in the next month or so at the big show in Anaheim. It's going to be packed. It's going to be crazy. Stay tuned for all the interviews and stay tuned for this stream coming out on LinkedIn about 3 to 4 weeks after the podcast. So we'll see you in the fields and on the horizon.